Marcel Proust revealed how love can often be a projection. Chase it and it can shatter you, but if you pick up the pieces and examine them well enough, you can look into the experiences of millions of people across time reflected into yours. And in doing so, you can put these pieces back together in a way strong enough to heal your heartbreak, or even a heartbreak you didn't know you had. Today we will be diving into Swann's Way. Set in early 20th century France, Swann's Way is the first volume of Marcel Proust's classic novel In Search of Lost Time, where he explores involuntary memory and the fabric of the reality of our shared inner world. Have you ever walked into a room and smelled, tasted, or heard something that transforms where you are for a minute and brings you back to a place from your past? This is what happens to the narrator during the famous Madeleine moment, where he bites into a tea-soaked cake while feeling weary and depressed as an adult, and it transports him to his childhood home of Combray and unlocks the memory and story of the entire novel going forward. He describes the powerful experience in these words: "As soon as I had recognized the taste of the piece of Madeleine dipped in lime blossom tea, all of Combray and its surroundings, acquiring form and solidity, emerged, town and gardens alike, from my cup of tea." With this moment, he popularized the idea of involuntary memory, which refers to memories that are triggered by external or internal cues that come on their own spontaneously without effort. These are often stronger than when we make a deliberate attempt to remember something, which often feels like looking at the past through your peripheral vision, because anything you focus on too intensely seems to blur. Proust believed that the reason involuntary memory triggers are stronger than intentional attempts at remembering is because our logical brain is too efficient for its own good. When we try to remember something on purpose, our brain only remembers the useful parts, essentially cropping and editing our memories to make them more useful for the present, which kills their soul. He wrote that involuntary memory is like a picture book. It shows you the images, but it doesn't let you feel the weather or smell the air. With the powerful Madeleine moment, Proust turned a fleeting brain quirk into a powerful philosophy, which allows us to focus on and expand these moments in a way where we can relive and better understand them than we did when they happened. In order to explore the powerful pull of love, one that takes us out of our logical, familiar world and bends time and reason around it, like a gravity well, we'll look through the eyes of Charles Swann and Odette de Crécy. Their story is the centerpiece of the book, in the chapter titled Swann in Love. We pick up on Swann as a single man in Paris, with high social standing and no shortage of women in his day-to-day life, and little reason to linger on any one of them. While at the theater one night, he is introduced to Odette. He initially finds Odette to not be his type. He considers her beauty to be of a style that doesn't appeal to him. Endowed with a style of beauty which left him indifferent, which aroused in him no desire, which gave him, indeed, a sort of physical repulsion. Her profile was too sharp, her skin too delicate, her cheekbones too prominent, her features too tightly drawn, and made her appeal unwell. Not the start of love that we would expect. Odette, on the other hand, is interested from the start, though her motivations may not be entirely pure. After their meetings, she begins visiting him frequently, taking note of his interest in art, history, literature, and culture overall. She mirrors them as best she can, creating a projection of herself to match the woman she believes Swann would want. She views him as a high society prize worth capturing for her own advancement, so she plays the role of a timid, admiring pupil of his refined taste, presenting herself as intriguing and worthy of his attention. Over time, this begins to work on Swann. In one instance, she purposely leaves a cigarette case behind at his home so he would think of her. When he returned it, she wrote him saying, "If only you had forgotten your heart, I would never have let you have that back." Eventually, the projection takes hold. Swann begins to see her differently, through the lens of Renaissance art. He placed on his study table, as if it were a photograph of Odette, a reproduction of Zipporah, Jethro's daughter. He would gaze at the large eyes, the delicate features, and when he looked at Odette herself, he would adapt her face to the masterpiece until it became more beautiful. Now Swann is doing what many of us have done, falling in love with a projection, either one of our own making or one created for us. This is the first sign of love's reality distorting effect. The stronger the distortion, the more intense the shock when reality snaps back, like a stretch rubber band suddenly released. Swann is also aware that his reason for falling in love with her is not fully coming from a real place in him, but simply for the reason that Odette is throwing herself at him. He says, "To have a woman's heart in one's hands is a reason for loving her, even if one has not chosen to do so." With this, Odette has accomplished the goal she had set out with at the start. He now feels he has found a treasure in the streets of Paris. Swann is also making a mistake that many of us make when it comes to dealing with projections. We often feel that since it isn't real love in the way we idealize it, that it can't hurt us like the real thing. It's just a prop knife. We can feel like we're safe because we have one foot in this fun world and one firmly in the real world. But a prop knife, if strong enough, can cut like the real thing, and our footing may not be where we think. Before we know it, we're jumping 2 feet in, unaware of how fast the current is moving from where we started. And this is exactly what happens with Swann and Odette. From here we see them growing closer as a couple, day in and out, attending parties, trips to the theater, restaurants and all, always together, and every night seen going home together. Odette knew that by then she had won her prize, and once she had secured Swann's devotion and his financial and social support, the act became a chore. Her interest began to fade and she pulled back. Once this happens, there is an imbalance in the relationship that can feel indistinguishable from the real ground beneath your feet. From there, we can either choose to chase the person to return the balance or leave. Swann chose to chase. The turning point happens at a regular social gathering they would attend. Up until this night, Swann is complacent. He knows Odette will be there, waiting like a piece of art on a wall. But one evening, he arrives late and she is gone. This affects Swann in a way deeper than he knew at the moment. He was upset that she wasn't there, and the more he focused on that, the more distorted the people at the party felt around him. Since he was now confronted with the real world, outside of the distorted world he had lived in with Odette, the music and attempts at conversation with him might as well have been a different language. He couldn't hear them. To the point where he needed to leave the party to find Odette and restore the new normal he was used to. In reality, the issue was much deeper. It was a break of habit. In Proust's world, habit acts as a powerful psychological anesthetic that dulls sensory experience and makes life bearable by creating a structural support. When a habit is suddenly broken, it feels like a physical amputation. For Proust, the break of habit is the only way the heart can actually feel again. He argued that when you see a person every day, habit makes you blind to their true impact on your life. Adjusting to this break of habit, Swann then goes to her house where she left a note saying she would be at a cafe. He then proceeds to search for her in every cafe he can find in his horse carriage, growing more and more desperate with each failed attempt, and with the same anger as someone in a hurry getting stopped by red light after red light. We get a glimpse into Swann's anger with this line. He looked with a sort of hatred at the people who were walking in front of his carriage, as though they were obstacles that kept him away from her, and whom he would have liked to see run over by his horses. At last he finds her, where he takes her home in his carriage and they engage in their most intimate physical moment yet, connecting his desperation into a physical release, creating a destructive reward pattern. From this night on, the more she pulls away and lies to him, the more he builds more elaborate explanations for her behavior. Ironically, this is exactly when the power dynamic permanently flips. For Swann, this physical possession is supposed to fix his anxiety, but it does the opposite. By finally catching her, he gives her the power to withhold herself later. And now, the prop knife of easy love is firmly against his throat. By this point, instances like this become more common and the gap between them gets wider, causing Swann to make more of an effort, which exacerbates the situation and ultimately leads to them not seeing each other altogether. Swann then navigates the breakup as many of us do, in a negative spiral of thoughts and emotions, experiencing the violent correction of the distorted view we've been looking through and real reality. Reality rushes back in like a bright light once the drapes are opened in a dark room. Instead of taking time to adjust to this, Swann decides to go back into the distortion, but this time not in love, but in heartbreak. He uses jealousy as an act of creative work, obsessing over scenarios created in his head of what she may be doing now that they're apart. He arranges every memory like an artist, each detail contributing to a grand, agonizing masterpiece, fueled by what bothers us most, the agony of the unknown. He goes into a dark place, telling himself that she was no good anyway, and that things he tolerated about her would have ended things regardless. Going over old memories of days they had together, searching for the first lie, tarnishing the past by telling himself that she was acting all along, and only he was truly in love. Imagining her and her friends laughing behind his back at him. In one quote, he turns his aggressive pain even more intensely at her. He found a sort of dark satisfaction in telling himself that she was a common girl, a girl who could be had by anyone, a girl who belonged to the streets. Even though if she had stayed with him, he would still be loving her and forgetting all of these things. Still, he was aware of the pain of the loss of her, whenever he would tire from his anger. He kept her in his mind at all times. Even when Swann is doing something else, a part of his brain is constantly tracking her. He is mentally visualizing where she is and who she's talking to. Experiencing the paradox of possession, that we desire what we don't have. This mental and emotional state puts Swann in a place that he hasn't been before, and the many actions he takes during this time dissolves his dignity, doing things he wouldn't normally do, and bargaining with himself that they're justified in the meantime. Meanwhile, to the reader, everything couldn't be more clear and obvious. Many times throughout the book I wanted to shake some sense into him. How could he not see it? And that's when it hit me of what Proust was doing with the story. He was showing us how it looks from the outside, how clear reality is to those who aren't behind the distorted wall of love or heartbreak. Proust showed us that Swann's mental state is not connected to reality during this time, saying, Swann had prepared himself for every possibility. Reality must therefore be something that bears no relation to possibilities. This is what makes dealing with the end of a relationship so difficult for so many people. Add to that bout of involuntary memory, and the lines between the past and the present begin to blur. You see someone similar in public and you brace immediately, making you feel like you've been ambushed by the past. The smell of a similar perfume, a specific song in a car passing by, or a sip of mulled wine on a winter night brings it all back in living, breathing color, like Proust and his Madeleine tea. Only by focusing on the present can it pass. Many readers have been surprised by how much they relate to the events in this book, often saying how after a while it can be difficult to separate their own memories from memories in the book, even though there is little similarity between our world and Proust era in early 20th century France. There is still a connection. It didn't start with us or with Proust. This is an ancient human experience. The same jealousy, obsession, and reality distorting effect that both love and heartbreak have is one that has been experienced throughout the world and time. Thoughts, words, and actions that we remember from our past can cause us to feel shame, embarrassment, and regret. And if dwelled on, these can isolate you and make you feel further from humanity, when in reality, these moments are what tie us to everyone else the most. As Ralph Waldo Emerson states in Self-Reliance, to believe your own thought, to believe that what is true for you in your private heart is true for all men, that what he says shall be found to be true for the men in cities and for the men in the fields. Searching for lost love isn't just about understanding a past relationship. It's about recovering the original mechanism of love we were born with, that may be buried under years of heartbreak, repurposed into a machine that creates projections for temporary gain. True love is the half of a bridge held by another, a bridge that can lead us out of the distortion and into the real place in the world where we want to be. It is both healing and a scar, and scars have the power to prove that the past was real. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, consider liking or subscribing. There are more videos like this coming soon.